couple months ago, I posted a video sharing my DNA results. Figured why not make a part 2 and share my updated DNA results with you guys. They updated the app, and as of right now, this is what the update looks like. The biggest change is that it previously said that I was only like 25% Iranian, Caucasian, and Mesopotamian, and they updated that, and now it's 60%. That's way more accurate because I know that on both sides, you know, like I am Iraqi, so it didn't make sense that I had so little of that. Okay, so I'm Arab, Egyptian, and Levantine, so 32.9%, and of that 32.9%, the majority is Peninsular Arab, Levantine, and then broadly Arab, Egyptian, and Levantine. It's actually pretty similar to what I had before. Central and South Asian, 2.5%. That's so interesting. So here they're saying Northern Indian and Pakistan. It's so interesting because in the previous one they didn't mention that. So, you know, now I know that it's like from this specific region. Now I can say like, oh, actually I'm 2.5% Pakistani and just, you know, act cool like that. And Sub-Saharan African, Sudanese, 0.7%. Ethiopian and Eritrean. I think this is a new one. I think this is part of the update because I don't think that was there before. Gambian and Guinean. Broadly West African, broadly Sub-Saharan African. Okay, that's so cool. I wish they would still kind of like hone down on that and like what that means, like broadly Sub-Saharan African. Like I wish they would like tell me like exactly where, but I'm happy with these results.
The breakdown of DNA you just watched is typical in Iraq, as you will see, and it's because of the Bantu people who migrated into Arabia forcefully. But this is not the full story that genetics show. Genetics show that Bantu people or West African people's DNA is found in places like North Africa, Iraq, the Levant, far back using DNA analysis. Omotic people, which is the West African version of Afro-Asiatic languages, have been found in Iraq, the Levant, and North Africa as well. To show an early example of this, let's read this study about the DNA of Iranians and Levantines and Arabians. Iranians, we found that most present-day Middle Easterners can be modeled as deriving their ancestry from 4 ancient populations: Levant, Neolithic Iranians, Eastern hunter-gatherers, and an 4,500-year-old East African Mota. We observed a contrast between the Levant and Arabia. Levantines have excess EHG ancestry, which we showed previously had arrived in the Levant after the Bronze Age, along with people carrying ancient Southeast European and Anatolian ancestry. Our result here show this ancestry is much higher in the Levant compared to Arabia. Another contrast between the Levant and Arabia is the excess of African ancestry in Arabian populations. We found that the closest source of African ancestry for most populations in our data is Bantu speakers from Kenya, in addition to contributions from Nilo-Saharan speakers from Ethiopia. We estimate that the African mixture in the Middle East occurred in the last 2,000 years, with most of it happening 500 to 1,000 years ago.
The country of Iraq is incredibly diverse. For example, when you go up into the northern regions of the country towards Mosul, people typically have higher levels of Anatolian DNA. And when you go all the way down towards the south towards Basra, people typically have higher levels of both Arabian and Iranian related admixture. You know, what's really interesting about the Iraqi genome, guys, is that they're a combination of the 3 Neolithic populations which contribute to most West Asian genomes. We are going to look at the Iraqi genome through a variety of different time periods to understand who these people are through a genetic perspective. Over here, I've got a Stone Age DNA breakdown of the average Iraqi genome. And
as you can see, just like the girl in the beginning, there's a 2% sub-Saharan African DNA from West Africa.
interestingly, what we see is that their DNA is evenly distributed between the 3 Neolithic populations within the region. The first one is that of Natufian-related ancestry, and the Natufians were the first people who discovered agriculture.
The Natufians, though having 61% Arabian, 21%, okay. The the Natufians have some trace sub-Saharan African ancestry. As we read, using modern populations as a reference, Schreiner et al. Also showed indicated Natufians carried 61% Arabian, 21% Northern African, 10% Western Asian, and a small amount of Eastern African ancestry at 6.8%, which is associated with modern Omatic speaking groups of southern Ethiopia. The study also suggested that the component may be the source of haplogroup EM96, particularly Y haplogroup EM215, also known as E1B1B, among Natufians, which, by the way, this E1B1B is also found in pharaohs. But what's up with these Omotic people? Who are they? The Omotic people are a Black African group that clusters with West Africans and East Africans and Nilo-Saharans. And this Omotic that shows up in Arabia doesn't come with a language. We should not be so quick to say that the language they brought to that area was Afroasiatic, especially considering how far back it was. Instead, it might be a pre-Afroasiatic or a pre-Bantu language, or a language that precedes them both.
Themselves do not agree upon. Recent genetic studies, however, challenge the traditional Jewish perspective on the Samaritan origins. Two papers analyzing the DNA of the Samaritan community revealed that the majority of their males have Y DNA markers which are shared by the Jewish priestly class known as Kohanim, indicating, at least based on the Jewish viewpoint, a paternal connection to Aaron, Moses' brother. Furthermore, their mitochondrial DNA, which tracks maternal lineage, is incredibly rare and absent for the most part in other ethnic groups worldwide, revealing a relatively unmixed origin. These findings indicate that Samaritans are likely descendants of Israelites who remained in the region after the Assyrian conquest, maintaining their distinct cultural and genetic identity. It is for this reason, in the next section of our analysis, we'll be using DNA samples from Samaritans instead of the two ancient Israelites. This choice is not only consistent with QPADM models employed by geneticists, but also the Samaritan samples we have access to are of better quality and more plentiful, allowing for better coverage and making our genetic analysis more thorough and reliable. Over here I have a DNA breakdown exploring Samaritan and Iron Age admixture, and as we can see, the modern Palestinians derive 60 to 80% of their ancestry from a Samaritan-like profile. The labeling and choice of these models are done to replicate QPADM models to reduce overfit. As a general rule of thumb, there is both a religious and geographical gradient influencing this ancestry, with Christians generally scoring higher results and northern Palestinian Muslims scoring higher than those in the south. Although there has been a history of Samaritans admixing with the modern Palestinians, please bear into consideration though that G25 assessment does not signify direct descent, but rather is a showcase of genetic affinity based on the available samples sequenced by scientists. When comparing other groups, what we find is that various Jewish populations also derive a portion of their ancestry from a Samaritan-like source.
DNA analysis from 20,000 years ago shows that the 30% of the DNA of Ibero-Mauritians who lived in North Africa is similar to West Africans. And like I said, people make the mistake of thinking that the Bantu migration is the full story of the migration of Africans from West Africa, but it's not true. The Bantu migration only explains the last 3,000 years, last 4,000 years. It's not a tell-all about what happened before that, because there's something called Proto-Bantu languages, and then there's pre-Proto-Bantu languages. And those pre-Proto-Bantu languages seem to have coalesced or come together with Afro-Asiatic languages, probably giving off some of the groups of Afro-Asiatic languages showing similarities. But you would have to know this information to even think that it's true. So what is my point to this video? My point is there is no real linguist who denies Bantu similarities with Afro-Asiatic languages on three counts: geographic distribution, which the Bantu languages are in the prime position to be influenced by Afro-Asiatic languages, vocabulary and grammar inheritance. Again, this is something that simply could have happened once, twice, three times. It happened actually a couple times, with the latest happening with the slave trades of Islam. And no one will deny, anyone who does is an idiot, but no one will deny that the Arabic language has highly influenced Bantu languages all over, from Kinyarwanda to Swahili to Lingala. All of these languages have a touch of Arabic in there.